Hey FBCC, my name's Daniel Hunter and I'm one of the youth at our church. If I haven't met you already, then I'm sorry because I try to meet everyone. Even though I'm not the most intentional about meeting people, I still try to as much as I can because I love to meet the community of Christ, and I really wanted to give my testimony before I leave. Most people wouldn't know, but I'm actually a really private person. I try to be as open as possible, but I don't like sharing stuff about me, so that's one of the major reasons that I really wanted to give my testimony. It was a big challenge for me just to open up and be honest with people. I want to start out with the idea of analyzing your life. I have 5 questions. Who am I? What defines me? What do I live for? What is my purpose? And finally, what do I put my faith in? The real reason these questions are so important is because I didn't have the answers to them. 3 to 4 years ago, I struggled pretty heavily with depression, and I hated everything. I hated school, I hated being around people, I hated myself, and if you know me now, it's very difficult to picture because I try to be like the opposite of that now, but I wasn't who I am now. I was homeschooled for my elementary school, so going into 7th grade was my first time in like normal public school, and it was rough. I felt super alone, I didn't have any social skills, I didn't know anyone, and I felt alone. Regardless of this, on the 3rd or 4th day of school, I met someone in one of my classes, and we just became friends. We connected over a band that we both knew, and honestly, I was super lucky because I didn't actively seek a friendship, but I was really lucky that I found one. By the end of 7th grade year, I had settled into a group of friends, and it was going pretty well, but I wasn't super close. I was getting by, but I wasn't really like thriving. By 8th grade, I was ready to explore the world of dating. And the great thing was, I didn't even know what that meant. But of course I wanted to try it, you know? So naturally, relationship went down the tubes, and I became super bitter. Looking back at it now, it seemed so silly, so pointless. But at the time, I mean, it was like, I put my faith in that, and afterward, it was soul-crushing. I stopped wanting to be around people. I spent a lot of time sleeping. I didn't eat a lot. I hung out with depressed people. I listened to depressed music, and I was just out of it all the time. I didn't smile. On good nights, I'd just sleep, and on bad nights, I'd have mental breakdowns, I'd cry my eyes out, and I'd hurt myself. However, it wasn't a little breakup that caused 2 years of depression. It was that I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what defined me, and I didn't know what I lived for. I didn't know what my purpose was, and I didn't know what to put my faith in. For months, I just sat in depression, feeling sorry for myself, and I didn't have very many close friends. I went to church, but I didn't really connect at church. I still felt alone. I knew a few people, but again, there wasn't a close bond of any kind. I didn't have anyone to talk to. But then something changed. I looked at my life objectively, and I decided that I didn't want to be who I was. I wanted to better myself. I cut my hair, which was a big deal for me because my hair went down to like here. It was long and horrible. So cutting my hair was a big deal. I started talking to people. I started talking to like one new person a week, which again, I was super introverted. I didn't know how to talk to people, so that was a big deal. But then eventually I got it down to like one new person a day, and I started like learning how to talk to people. I watched tons of videos on YouTube on how to be more likable, how to be charismatic, how to style your hair, how to dress better, how to exercise properly, just everything you could do to like improve who you are, you know? Suddenly, the oversized hoodie and black jeans weren't cutting it anymore. I mean, I wanted to be different. I started taking up hobbies to make my life more interesting. I really got into art and music. I drew a lot, and I also started exercising. And I had this mentality of like fake it till you make it, but then my small little like everyday things turned into routines, and it just changed who I am as a person. I started meditating because I found that whenever I would have like a bad night and I'd start to break down, if I just meditated, then I wouldn't. I mean, I could calm myself down and I could just sleep instead of going crazy and going into my like bad place. I genuinely became more happy and more joyful, and this was actually the time I found my faith, and it has to do with one of my heroes. So I doubt any of you'll know what tomorrow is, but it's actually a significant day for me. If you've been around me any length of time, you'll know that my favorite band is a band called Linkin Park, and its lead singer is a man named Chester Bennington. This guy was my hero. I mean, he was in my favorite band, he was an amazing singer, an amazing songwriter also. His life really put a perspective on music that really resonated and connected with me. Chester was abused when he was a small child, and that, amongst other things, led to him having an extremely bad depression. And it really came out in like his song's lyrics and just how he sang. There'd be moments when he sang super soft, and there'd be moments where it was just raw pain and sadness. For myself, it was just comforting to know that other people struggled like with what I struggled with, and my depression wasn't to that level, but it was comforting to know that like I wasn't alone out there. The real reason Chester was my hero though was because he struggled with such depression, he struggled with suicidal thoughts, and he struggled with drug addiction extremely badly, but he got out of it. He was the lead singer of 5 different bands, the main ones being Linkin Park and another band called Stone Temple Pilots. He had such success in music. He had chart-topping songs, Grammys, awards, best-selling albums. He was at the top. This picture really shows how loved this guy was. I mean, millions of people, well, not in this picture, thousands of people just holding up lights, reaching out to him, just wanting to be closer to him, wanting to connect with him. I mean, this guy was loved. He got married to a beautiful woman, he had 6 beautiful kids, he had a loving family. He went on radio shows and he did interviews talking about his depression and just making it a sign to where other people could come forward and talk about it and get the help they need. His purpose literally turned to helping everyone. Chester Bennington's redemption gave me hope. I was hopeful for my life because if this screwed up guy could turn his life around and fix himself, then so could I. I mean, I wasn't nearly as bad as he was, right? And then he killed himself. It was July 20th, 2017, and I remember I was in Mexico on a missions trip actually. And when I heard, I wasn't like super sad. I mean, I didn't know him personally, but a little piece of hope in me was gone. Just before he killed himself, a really close friend of his named Chris Cornell killed himself in the same way. And I thought, well, okay, this is what set him off, but that couldn't have been the only reason, right? Then a few weeks later, I was at church and it just hit me. That week's sermon was about making God your constant. And basically the main idea was the world isn't perfect. So if you put your faith in people or ideas, you're going to be let down. That's why the only thing that really matters when you put your faith in is God. God can never let you down because God's perfect. This really demonstrates the concept of it's not who you are, it's whose you are, because if you focus on who you are, then you're imperfect, you're a sinner. But if you focus on whose you are, then suddenly you're a child of God. I mean, that's a whole different deal. Then I thought back to Chester. This guy had dedicated himself to helping others. I mean, he had gotten out of his bad place. He had started a family. He had conquered, well, for the most part, conquered depression. I mean, he had a way to vent. He was doing his dream job. He was loved by millions. And then when it really came down to it, his goal was to stop people from killing themselves, to get them out of depression. And he couldn't save his friend. Imagine how meaningless the world would feel if you knew exactly what your purpose was. You knew exactly what you live for. You live to help other people, to save other people. But then at the end of the day, you realized you couldn't do that. Suddenly, your life is meaningless. So I want to go back to those original questions. Who am I? What defines me? What do I live for? What is my purpose? And what do I put my faith in? For a long time, I've tried to put my identity in a lot of different things. In middle school, I tried to put it in friends, in music, in the culture that was around me, and it let me down. Throughout most of high school, I put my identity in who I wanted to be. I wanted to be fit. I wanted to be smooth talking. I wanted to dress well. I wanted to be liked. And that let me down also. I've tried defining myself by politically what I think. That didn't work. Tried defining myself just as a good person. That didn't work either. I've defined myself in so many pointless ways, and none of them have stuck. The only time I haven't been let down was when I've lived as a child of God. When it stops being about me and who I am, and it starts being about God and what He's done for me, everything changes. I don't feel broken, I feel whole. Now, this isn't to say God is a fix for all your problems. God's not a fix for depression. That's very clear for me. One of my favorite pastors, a man named Charles Spurgeon, struggled heavily with depression and even suicide. Imagine Stephen or Nick or Andy struggling with suicidal thoughts and preaching about them. How crazy does that sound? God doesn't fix you. However, God does give you a reason to keep going. He promises He will not let you be tempted beyond your ability, but with temptation He will also provide a way to escape that you may endure it. That's Corinthians 10:13. I know that there are people out there that struggle the way I struggle. I mean, at the time, it was horrible. I felt alone. I didn't want to tell people. I didn't want to open up. But every time I told someone, that was just another person that had my back, another person that cared for me and told me they loved me. And I realized my God is more powerful than any depression. So now I can answer those questions. So who am I? I'm a child of God. What defines me? How God loved me. What do I live for? I live to love others. What is my purpose? My purpose is to glorify God. And what do I put my faith in? God.